Good morning, this is Sue Scheets, and I'm here this morning to show you some ways that you can use up your designer paper. I know I love designer paper and usually end up ordering everything that they have in any catalog that comes out. And then a couple months later, I realize that I've been using it, but I still have a whole bunch more left to use. So I have some ideas that I'm going to share in the next few weeks that might help you use up some of your designer paper stash, as we call it. All right, let me switch the camera. Let's get started. So this week I'm going to show you different things you can use your envelope punch board for that will help you use up some of your designer paper. Now I hope you've all heard of it, but if you haven't, it is a marvelous tool. You can actually make over 62 envelopes based on your initial card size. So the envelope that I'm going to make is what you would use a standard card size on. So the first thing you do is you check on your punch board for the standard size. The camera is not letting me focus. What did I do? So the standard size is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and on the punch board it tells you that you need to cut your paper 8 by 8. So I have here a piece of designer paper that I've cut 8 by 8. The next item that it tells you is where you start your scoring, and for an 8 by 8 sheet of paper you start your scoring at 3 1/2. So you lay your cardstock down. Let me get this focused so you can see the top here, at 3 1/2. And this is my system I use. You punch and then score. And the way you score is you put the scoring tool, which conveniently is in this little hole right here so you won't ever lose it. You lay it on the right hand side of this little groovy area, and it will fit into a groove that's underneath and give you a really good score line. This is the groove I'm talking about that's underneath. You turn your paper 90 degrees and you find your score line. You lay this little tab right here, right on your score line, and you do the same thing again. Punch and score. You turn it another 90 degrees, lay it against the score line, punch and score. And you do your final thing. You lay it on the score line, you punch. Oh no, punch, I hope it punched, and score. Now when you're done, you can go up to the top here, and there is another punch at the top of your scoreboard. It's right here, and you punch and it rounds your corners for you. It just gives it a different look, and I like the rounded look. You could keep them straight if you didn't want them rounded. So then this is what you end up with after you've punched your corners. So I like to take the small ends, turn them over, press them to the inside, and I put my adhesive right here. If you put your adhesive on the longer flap, you might end up with adhesive where there's no paper. So this way, if you do it on this inside flap, you know that you're going to exactly have adhesive where you need it. And then you fold the bottom flap up, and there you go. You have your envelope. Fold this flap down, and when your card's inside, you can turn it over and either use these lines to write your person you're mailing it to, or put a little mailing label on there. But that's how you make your basic envelope. So that uses up 8 by 8 of your designer paper pieces. Another thing you can do is you can make a insert, a liner for your envelope, and that's what I'm going to make next. You start out for a standard envelope with a 4 by 4 square. You lay it down on your punch board at 4 inches and you punch. That's all you have to do, is just punch. Then you want the opposite corner, so I take it in my hand so I won't make a mistake. You flip it over and you line it up at 4 inches again and make another punch. Now you notice, see, I have 2 curved edges. then I'm also going to round off the top corner. I just like that look. Sometimes I even use regular cards when I want to round off the corner. Use this for rounding it. It seems to be non-fail. So what I did earlier was I made another envelope with the punch board, and I made it using old olive cardstock. Nice and stiff. It makes a nice strong envelope, and I'll just put a label on the front of here. So you'll notice that when I put this in here and put it down about 1/2 inch, it makes a beautiful liner, and it looks like it's in the entire envelope, but it's just in the very top section. So how do you attach this? There is a special thing you need to do. Just put your adhesive on the top 2 edges. So I'm going to do that, this edge and this edge. The reason you don't do it all the way around is this will make it stiff in your envelope, and when you try to fold your flap down, you sometimes get a buckle. So it will stay in the envelope because of the size and because I've already glued it. So anyway, you lay your liner in there, press it down, and now you can fold your envelope, and you've got a lovely little liner inside your envelope. Now, if you cut your regular cardstock at 8 by 8, you have 4-inch strips down the side. So you have enough to make several of these liners that you could put in any color envelope. All right, so the third thing I want to show you how to make is what I call a card holder. It's going to hold, it can hold like 4 cards and their envelopes. So let me get the punch board back. And there are 5 steps to this. I write it on a Post-it note and I keep it on my punch board. So anytime I want to make an envelope, then I just look at this. Now I do have the steps listed on my blog in case you're interested in making a card envelope. And my blog is sushystamps.blogspot.com. All right, so the first step is to find your card size. Well, we know I'm going to do the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that my paper size is 8 by 8 inches. You add 1/4 inch to that. So instead of 8 by 8, I'll be doing 9 1/4 by 9 1/4, and I've already cut my cardstock into a 9 1/4 inch square. This paper stack, by the way, is Under the Mistletoe out of the annual catalog. I just love this page with these pine cones, and then this is what's on the back. All right, so I'm going to lay it. So the next step, step 3, is to look and find what your score line is going to be, and my score line for this card was 3 1/2. And so now I'm going to add 1/4 inch to that, so my score line will start at 3 1/4. So I think I can tilt my scoreboard like this so you can see what I'm doing better. So I'm going to lay it at 3 1/4 and do just like I did before, punch and score. Now when I try to score on this line, the paper is longer, but it really won't matter because you have enough of your score line you can use for this next step. So the next step is what we did before, and that's where we match the little point up to the score line, punch and score. Now this time it's shorter. Turn it 90 degrees, punch and score. Turn it 90 degrees, punch and score. So now it looks like it did when I did the envelope, but it's a lot bigger. The final step is to move your paper over 1 inch. So when I started at 3 3/4. Now I'm going to move it over to 4 3/4. And you do the same thing. Punch and score. Move it 90 degrees. Match up your score line. Punch. And this time you're using you'll notice that things are changing up a little bit. You've got 2 score lines now. And the last one, punch and score. Now, I don't know if you can see the two sets of lines, and then there's a little square in the middle. What you're going to do is cut these little squares out, and then you will fold, we'll pretend they're cut out. You're going to fold on all your score lines. All the way around. And when you fold it together, you'll end up with a dimensional card holder like this. You can make a belly band or tie a ribbon around it, and it will hold 4 cards and 4 envelopes. So I hope today you've gotten some ideas of what you could use your envelope punch board for. Come back next Tuesday at 9, and I'll have some more ideas for using up your cardstock. Thanks for watching.